Wolfanoz back at it again with an Odroid build, this time 256 gigabyte. So the 400 gigabyte was revolutionary, first 400 gigabyte image to fit on a micro SD card. But unfortunately, some people were kind of priced out of that. And so he wanted to make sure he still appealed to some other people, because really there's only Pie Piggies and a couple other images out there that really give the Odroid a run for its money as far as pre-configured, ready-to-go images. And so this one is a 256 gigabyte, which it's slightly under that, so it'll fit on a 256 gigabyte SD card. And those are running around $40 at the time of this video, and I'm sure they're going to go down from there. So you can get this thing up and running with controllers for under $150. If you already have an Odroid, it's really, really easy to do. And something great about the Odroid is it plays at Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS, as well as PSP, much better than the Raspberry Pi because it has more RAM, better graphics, faster processor. All those things make for a better gaming experience. And then it's all done with Retropie, so you still get all the same customization settings when you hit start, all the same search functionalities. You get these cool, awesome screensavers as well. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump in and check out this image. Alright, so let's just imagine you just booted this thing up for the first time. It will ask you for your controls. I'm using an Xbox 360 controller, and then you get right in. There is some 8-bit music to start, background music. All I did was I went over here to options, and then in the Retropie toolkit, or Arena toolkit, there are some scripts here, and you can just go ahead and do toggle BGM, which stands for background music. And that'll just turn it off. You don't even need to restart your Odroid. It should just be good to go. So Sega Saturn does work on this, and the emulator's only getting better. I'm sure there'll be updates further down the road. But this thing is rocking like 30 systems plus a ton of games. How many games are on here? We can go to all games really quick. But you see everything all the way from Atari all the way up to Sega Saturn. So, you know, decades of gaming here, of retro gaming. So this is rocking a total of 7,515 games. Don't let the game title, the numbers, don't go by sheer numbers. It really has to do with what type of systems. Because if you put like Commodore 64 on here, or some other systems that have like Amiga that has like thousands of titles, you can just load this thing up if you want total number of games. Remember, you know, like the Nintendo 64 collection, the Nintendo DS games, the CD-based games, PSP games, huge files, like 1 gigabyte each. So those things are taking up the majority of the space. PlayStation Classic's the most recent classic small mini system release, and this one's rocking 106 games. Now, with PlayStation, I really feel like the Pi and the Odroid have very similar performance. So don't think that you need an Odroid to get better PlayStation performance. You could pretty much stick to Retropie on the Raspberry Pi B+ for that, but it runs great on the Odroid as well. But I wanted to, stop in here really quick because this is what a lot of people are excited about recently. I mean, we have a lot of retro gaming systems, and what sets these apart is that they're so cheap, A, and then B, they can play CD-based games. PlayStation, Nintendo 64 isn't CD-based, but it's, higher graphically requirements, and systems like Sega Saturn, etc. So why don't we get started here? What exactly is on this thing? So 3DO, you got 17 games. I highly recommend Gex and Road Rash on here. A lot of really fun games. It works perfectly. Panasonic 3DO is one of these systems I really like to emulate because the initial system, if you were to actually buy it, is just so darn expensive. Same thing with arcade classics. You're not going to have, 100 arcade cabinets in your basement or something like that. I know there's people out there that have them, but the majority of us do not. Thus, if we want to play these games, we either got to find them or emulate them. And so this arcade set I can highly recommend because Wolfanoz back in the day made an arcade only build, and he literally went game for game and made sure that all the the right emulators were selected as well as the right ROMs were there. So I can highly recommend this arcade set. That's a common question I get, which is, does it have a good arcade set? Yes, it does. Atari 2600, and so you have 2,175 games there. Huge collection. Huge collection. So everything from Pac-Man, Galaga, to Raiden, to Street Fighter, all that stuff should be on there. Atari 2600, 650, Atari 5281, Atari 7858, Jaguar 56. Now the Jaguar's an interesting one. It doesn't necessarily emulate perfectly. There's a lot of sound issues from my experience with Jaguar, but you know, I think it'll get better over time, and a lot of these games are still totally playable. And there's a lot of games as well, a lot of great games as well. Like the catalog was pretty cool. All right, moving along, Vision, we got 116, Dreamcast 75, or it's actually 74 because the first one is the actual emulator itself, and these all run really good. I've done so many videos now on the Odroid at this point, the XU4, that, you know, there really is, okay, so minus 2 more games. There's a couple dual CD, so it's probably closer to like 69, 68 Dreamcast games. But Power Stone actually runs good on the Raspberry Pi too, but Revolt is a game that doesn't really run great on the Raspberry Pi. Runs great on this thing. Oh, I'm sure my sound settings, oh, not bad. Sega GT, great game. So Shenmue, there you go, another 6 games you got to get rid of. So I'd say it's about 8 or 9 games less than it's saying. So what is that? Like, let's just get to the bottom here. So if it's 75, it's probably about 65 Dreamcast games. Again, each Dreamcast game is close to a gig each, so that's why you just can't fit that many on. You can add an external hard drive if you want, or swap out games. Totally easy to do. Intellivision 121, Sega Master System 427, Mega Drive 685, the Japanese Mega Drive 179, Nintendo 64. This is every single game. So all your favorite games. Goldeneye does play. You can play 4-player Goldeneye. You can play 4-player Mario Kart on here. And if you are going to play a lot of Nintendo 64, I highly recommend checking out the case. There's an Odroid case that looks just like a Nintendo 64 with an LCD screen on the front. And it actually tells you, like, you can either program it to what game you're playing, or you can even just program it to the system. It's really cool. And it does work. It's pre-set up with this particular image for the system. It's not going to, if you play Goldeneye, it's not going to say Goldeneye. It's going to say Nintendo 64. There's going to be a big lit up LCD screen lit up with the Nintendo 64 logo, and there's a little animation that it does. So Nintendo DS, you see a lot of images skip this over, but Nintendo DS runs good. It's kind of weird, you know, with some games, but some of the more classic games that people really enjoy that can be used with a controller and don't need a touchscreen run really well. Well, they all run well, but, you know, it's still, you know, you're not going to be left with, how do I play this game? Or it's all weird the way I play it. You know, majority games are usually pretty good with that. Neo Geo, awesome system. Not much new there, but still classic, awesome stuff. 136. Nintendo 730. PC Engine CD-ROM, so 14 games. These take up a little bit more space, but again, classic games that are hard to get your hands on, but a lot of fun. Ports. So quite a few different ports. The Dooms are the full versions. The Quake is the full version. They're not the shareware versions. Then there's a couple hacks on here as well, like the, you know, the Super Nintendo version of Zelda hacked. So PSP. Now, on the previous videos, I did a lot of gameplay with these games. They will run some of the not so graphically intense games. You can run them all the way up to like 6, 7, 8x on the graphics. Some of the more intense games, you have to run them on 2x, maybe 3x. But like God of War, this one is particularly emulation heavy, you know, processor and more graphic heavy. And so you will find more limiting on there. But Gran Turismo works, Grand Theft Auto works. All these games run great. And again, there was a huge catalog for this system, and you're wondering like, oh, it's missing this or it doesn't have that. I get that. Unfortunately, you know, it's, you know, these are becoming the best sellers. There might be some cult classics or things that you want to actually do yourself. And with that said, you can delete and add your own. Now, last time I played Wipeout, Tekken, Soul Calibur, I played Gran Turismo, I played a few others. So if you want, check out my other video. I did a few more. Just search Odroid on my channel, or I'll put a little playlist, and you can see all that performance if you're wondering about how some of these more graphically intense games perform. PSP Minis, $294. I recommend 321 Super Crash. Can never get enough of that game. PlayStation, we went through those in the beginning of the video. Back to options, or we haven't actually passed it yet. You just saw the background music. Sega Saturn, 40. So now these games do run, and the emulator is getting better and better as the day goes on. To me, this is one of the really cool things about the Odroid. These games will not run on the Raspberry Pi, where they do run on the Odroid. So the Odroid unlocks the capability of playing this game. these games, and which is really cool. Sega Genesis 32X 33, Sega CD 31, SG 1000 96, Super Nintendo 783, Super Graphics you got 5, TurboGrafx 16 92, Vectrex 39, and then we're back 7,517 games. You can add, there you go, Road Rash for the 3DO. He has it on there. So really quick, let's just do a arcade game, and then I want to play some Sega Saturn. You know, I've done maybe a PSP game. A lot of the other stuff I've done a lot of. Let's just try a fighting game. So you got to insert your tokens. So as you can see, this does have bezels. To insert tokens, it's your hotkey. So typically that's select. And I can use my analog stick here or my D-pad on my Xbox 360 style controller. Okay, so you get that. Whatever you set your hotkey as in the beginning of the tutorial, or when you set your controls, that will be your that will be how you exit games. It's hotkey plus start. There's a little bit of lag, but it's super playable. I'm about to die. I just shrank. Okay. Alright, so there you go. The Batman Forever arcade game. And PlayStation runs great. PSPs run great. I'm going to do some Nintendo 64. I feel like a lot of people like the classic Nintendo 64. Such a cool system. Let's find a game here. I always do Goldeneye. I've done Hot Wheels. That's a great multiplayer game if you have a friend over. We can go ahead and do Killer Instinct. Finish me off. There you go. All right. All right, there we are back out. A couple other things. If you hit select on your controller, it goes to a random screensaver. If you hit select again, it'll rotate between games. This is a fun way to actually just see what's on the image. Just press select, select, select. And then when you finally see a game you want to play, if you hit the start button on your controller, it'll actually send you into that game. So let's find a game. Like, oh, that game would work. Okay, let's just try this, Ren and Stimpy. We hit start, and then boom, we're loading in the game. While this is loading, another common question: how big is the image? Is my SD card big enough? Make sure you're buying name brand SD cards, Samsung, SanDisk, but make sure you're buying them from a reputable seller. So you go Super Nintendo. This is 236 gigabytes after it's extracted. The actual file download's much smaller, but 236 gigabytes, that's 254,330,401,000 bytes. I have it on SanDisk Ultra, 256 gigabyte, no issues whatsoever. And then there is bezels, as you saw, screensavers, background music, and then all this beautiful stuff, all the video snaps there. So there's a preview of the games when you look at it, like Metal Slug 7 here. Look at that. Nice. All right, so that just about does it for this image. I'm going to have to give it an A. The reason being is there's only really one other 256 gigabyte Odroid image that's pre-built and really nice that has the latest Team ORA build on it, which you're going to want that because of the controller configurations. They added a bunch of extra stuff that should have been there in the first place, but they're slowly rolling it out more and more and more and improving it. With all that said, it has way more video snaps. The artwork's not missing. It has a way more diverse library. They're not just dumps of ROMs. They actually hand selected a lot of games and picked some of the best sellers and things like that. He also went in and configured some things like 3DO, arcade classics, and all that stuff is pre-configured. Like, it's done to how it should work. So a lot of that legwork is done for you, the compatibility. So it's running really, really good. So I cannot recommend this image anymore. By far the best 256 gigabyte for the Odroid currently. The only one thing that he did mention to me is he had some issues with Kodi. So Kodi is not currently installed on this build, but you could definitely try to add that on your own. It's just not pre-done. It is on the 400 gigabyte version, but not on the 256. So again, A grade, a lot of good stuff going on in here. No fixes needed. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, that's what I think. Let me know what you all think. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.